Now, let's take a look at it from a different angle, okay? And let's look at it as what I call unbroken ecological wholeness. Interesting concept. What I mean is when you cook it, you disrupt it. So this is a picture of a cabbage leaf. The bottom picture is a raw cabbage leaf, and the upper one is a cooked one. And Fritz Popp, who's still alive in Germany, explains about the living field has the highest amount of bio-photon energy. And so what we see with a little imagination, we can see that the bottom, the cabbage leaf, has a lot more energy than the top one. It's cooked. Okay, it's still got its advantages, but Fritz Popp did some really interesting research because he was able to measure these things. And he found that people eating junk food had a bio-photon energy of about 1,000. People eating organic but cooked had 23,000. And people who were doing a kind of mix with live food but organic vegan had 43,000. Live food people eating primarily live food, at least 80%, had 83,000 biophotons. And if you combine that with some Chinese herbs, the longevity herbs, which I do use, reishi and heishu wu and goji berries, you get up to 116,000. That's a lot, versus even 83 with all live food. So it helps. So what happens with it is there's more energy. When there's more energy, the subtle organizing energy, which is the energetic matrix, so to speak, on which the physical exists, gets stronger and more focused. So we have more strength. Next slide, please. And then power of caloric restriction. What is that there? That's a sprout. Okay, that's more than a little bit of energy. But Steve Spindler in around 2001 showed that if you decrease your food intake by 40%, you actually increased and actually turned on your anti-aging genes. And I think that, well, I agree. So I have to say, and again, this is over time. I don't really have dinner. I'll have a big, a medium salad at lunch. And I'm not a person who needs a lot of protein. And then and then the breakfast, I'll just have a little bit of a kind of a herbal drink, okay, with my goji berries and cacao and ginger, which I like. Okay, so membrane potential is the cell becomes a better battery when you're using the live food, and being a better battery, there's going to be more energy. And that's the genetic upgrade that Werner from Sweden found. It didn't change your genes, it upgraded your genes. That's the important thing, to their highest expression. Next slide. So look at the energy. This is live. This is another kind of high energy supplement. We're not promoting any particular supplement here, so I'm not going to mention where it came from. But see how balanced it is. The other thing is energy, enzyme preservation. Dr. Howe, even in the 30s, began talking about it, because the live food, when you cook food, it has self-digesting enzymes, and they get destroyed. And we clearly, the raw food is also more alkalizing and mineralizing, and those matrices, the chelating matrices, are not upset. Zeta potential is the water energy in the cell, and that, again, keeps it at a high level. Now, here's the bowel toxicity. Takes 24 to 36 hours for food pass through, but cooked food is 40 to 100 hours. Okay, so there's a big difference. And the longer it's in your system, the more potential for toxicity it has. And when we heat carbohydrates, it causes acrylamide, which is kind of a carcinogen. Next slide, please. So, Paul Konchakov in the 30s, and cooked food overactivates and exhausts the immune system. And I'm going to qualify this because one of my master's students actually tried to repeat this, his study. And what this person found was really interesting to me, to be honest with you. What she found was that cooked vegetables did not cause an over immune response. It was the junk food. People had a hot dog or something like that. Then it overactivated and exhausted the immune system. But if you just had cooked organic vegetables, it didn't seem to make a difference. So I thought that was interesting. We have to check out the research is done. Otherwise, we're using statements that was 30, that's almost 90 years ago. It's like, well, that's not quite true. Somewhat true. Okay. And then I talked about moving the outer light to the inner light. Okay, so that we're really, we're like a big leaf, okay? And when we are free to just absorb the sunlight into our cells, we get the energy right away. Now, I kind of got this idea as a Sundancer, the Native American Sundancer. And there you dance without food and water for 4 days. And I saw there was a difference. And then the last year, I did what we call the eagle dance. I won't go into the whole sun dance, but basically, you have the hooks in your chest for 4 days, whereas the other ones, it's just for an hour or two. I didn't leave the circle. I was out in the sun 4 days straight. I was the only one to make it through that way, out of about 60 people. Okay, so what did I learn from that? Well, I didn't get sunburned. Now, how is it possible that I didn't get sunburned, but people with darker skin got sunburned? How is it possible I was the only one to make it through, never leaving the circle? Yeah, I took an enema before the dance and all that, okay, but I didn't have to leave the circle. And I realized that I was eating the sun. I was actually getting stronger. At the end of 4 days without food and water, I was feeling great and really getting strong. I was like, how can that be? Well, transfers the outer light into the inner light. I became like a plant. And I was like, whoa. And then I did research, because that's the way I like to do things. Okay. And there was some research going on in Germany where they were treating cancer patients, and they found that when they put them on the live foods, they were able to be in the sun 4 times longer without getting sunburned. So that further reinforced the idea that we become like a plant. We're taking in the sunlight and using that directly as energy. So that's what I mean by outer light into the inner light. So I'm just mentioning that. I'm not asking, I'm not suggesting people do that without some level of preparation. Obviously, 4 days without food and water in the hot sun, and with me, the Sundance spirit dance, you're just wearing a skirt and nothing on top. So it's like you're really exposed. So not getting sunburned was like, how did that happen? So that's my theory of how we become like plants. Think about that. That's so trippy. We're actually eating the sunlight. It's the only explanation I have, because I'm the only one that didn't get sunburned, and I was the only one out there the whole time. Okay, so it's best for optimizing spiritual life and life in general on the planet. And there are multiple reasons for that, which we're going to go into in just a moment. Next slide, please. Okay, what is that? That's kind of like a limit. What we're seeing is food has energy, and you can take it in, and that energy goes directly into you. That's a good deal. Next slide, please. Okay, that's a radish sprout. It's phenomenal. So when we're eating these foods, if we make it a sacred act, it's like we can feel the energy. Of course, you have to chew it, but you can feel the energy. Next slide, please. And that's a corn sprout. Next slide. This is Carulian photography. This is cacao. I'm not going to give a long talk on cacao, but it turns out that it's extremely good even for treating diabetes, but for increasing blood flow to the brain and to the heart significantly. It's a tremendous amount of energy. Next slide. This is raw cacao now. I'm not cook. Here's a person, same person. On the left, you see there's a fingerprint, and they're eating good organic food. On the right, they're eating junk food. This is an experiment, and there's no aura. There's no field. That's how big it is. Next slide, please. And this is the pineal gland, and you can see that white light there. That is, I think, an important thing to understand is we are actually activating our internal organs, and it gets increased when we're eating the live food. Next slide. That's the pituitary gland. So understand these have frequencies, and our intake affects these, the empowerment of these frequencies. Next slide, please. Okay, that's epinephrine. Next slide. I'm sorry, that's norepinephrine. This is epinephrine. It's wound 3.5 times, and you see the crystalline structure of these hormones that are activated. Next slide. This is very straight. It's testosterone. So whereas the women, it's more rounded, with the men, it's testosterone. Women need testosterone.